你好，我希望你一切都好. Hello, I hope you're doing well. I strongly appreciate your patronage to my postings and to your dedication to the restoration of our human rights and the protection of the people. I love you all. Thank you for learning and respecting English, allowing us to continue to connect the world peacefully, because we're all just humans. I'm going to talk to you about cancer. I may be giving you some very significant information in reference to the eradication of cancer. And that's very serious to me. Cancer has taken the lives of several of my loved ones, and I'm very confident cancer will not be my cause of death. The hospital is where you go for aid once you've developed cancer, but cancer is very much so prevented in our kitchens. The prevention is the cure. The hospital is the aid. We all have cancer cells in us. It's just a matter of if that cell is aggravated enough to activate and then continuing to get aggravated until it develops into a fatal condition. So in this way, logistically, if you can avoid the foods that are going to cause cancer, you will avoid cancer. In a very similar way that if you avoid cigarettes, well, you avoid all the problems that come with cigarettes. I know that you intuitionally, intelligently, and practically understand all of that. Now, I'm going to show you a graph on my computer, and I don't have the means to do this smoothly. I can't edit, but this is a graph. Cancer, between these years, the lines are ages. The yellow line is the older population. The red and brown is the middle age, and the blue is the really young. So what you'll see is the yellow line, that is the older generation, is very much so not hopping on that bandwagon and eating those foods, but eating natural foods. Whereas those middle-aged people at that time, well, they were very much so eating the factory foods and very much so developing cancer. I firmly believe it's connected to factory food versus natural food, more so than meat or veggies. I feel like in Africa, they get a lot of moisture in their food through natural meats. And in other parts of the world, they may get it through more so fruits and veggies. And in that way, it's very much so about having natural foods versus factory foods. And the natural foods are the foods that have been on the planet since before the factories were even made. Well, those foods have always kept us vitally healthy and cancer-free, and they always will. But currently, the farmers are bullied out of the supermarket. The factory food flood is in full effect. And now we have factory finance and addiction in our veins, and not nature and health. It's causing cancer. But I do have some good news that continues on that conversation from the graph. Since 2011, cancer has been on the decline for both males and females, which is obviously fantastic news. And what it would link back to is the humans stopped eating those foods. And the humans themselves were just eating healthier and eating more natural and getting away from those foods. So in the beginning, the older generations weren't getting it because they weren't hopping on the bandwagon, but the middle-aged people did. But then come around the 2010, largely a lot of people started getting away from it and eating more organic, being more health conscious. And in that, cancer started to drop fairly quickly when you consider it. So I think that's very grounded logistical evidence that the factory foods in excess in this way have been very hazardous to humans' health in general, and therefore we have no reason to believe that it won't continue to be, because it will. This is what it does. And if you look in areas like Canada and America, where those foods are most popular, so are the fatal issues with cancer, and a lot of similar things are going on now in China, and that food has only been there for about 10 or 15 years. And then you look to India, where they're free of a lot of those foods. They're also free of a lot of those health concerns. And all of this, I believe, is very strong evidence that connects the factory foods with the development of cancer. The factory foods are also addictive, where the tongue is hijacking the process from the brain to the stomach. So the brain is not asking the stomach if it's satisfied, it's asking the tongue. But a healthy brain has nothing to do with your tongue. Never has, never will. Your tongue is completely insignificant to a healthy brain in that way. Your brain needs a healthy stomach. And when your tongue hijacks the system, your stomach is damaged. We have a lot of damaged stomachs that are not properly digesting. Before the food even gets into the body, it's not recognized. It's causing a lot of health problems, as it would. Whereas, if those harmful products are not overly consumed, and the natural products are generally there, well, that issue is avoided. I do understand how unpractical it seems to have no factory foods. I'm not unrealistic in that. I'm just giving you the food science. And your opinion on how many factory foods there are and all of that is insignificant to this, because this is food science. And in real science, you don't have an opinion. This isn't my opinion. I see the increase in the decline and can completely correlate it to the health of the people, the natural foods and the factory foods. And I'm not happy about it either, because I know how many factory foods there are and how far we would have to go. But it gives me hope for a cancer-free world. I want to expand to the Western diet. My biggest concern with the typical Western diet being a lot of the convenience foods and fast foods is circulatory health and dehydration on the inside. A lot of the health issues related to the Western diet, more fundamentally, go back to circulatory health, because stuff is very much so collecting in your veins, making it harder for your blood to get through. A lot of that modernly goes back to how excessive it is, because if those foods are spread out and consumed more maturely, well, the body will have all the right stuff to help flush your veins and not really have as much of a risk, where the risk would be drastically reduced when you did eat it because you weren't eating it so much. But again, with the food addiction, it's quick, it's easy, it's cheaper than eating from the grocery store, and it's damaging you, because in this society, all the cheap stuff is the garbage. Now, in reference to the dehydration on the inside, this is very serious. All of the organs in the body are susceptible to dehydration. So are your bones and your joints. I think you could logistically understand that. Arthritis could be linked to dehydration of that joint, and lung cancer could be connected to dehydration of the lung when you think about it in a more broad perspective than the fine detail of what the dehydration caused and what area it attacked. As a more fundamental source, it could be linked back to dehydration on the inside, which would obviously be very much so guaranteed to be caused by the severity of our factory food flood in 2022. Any moist organ in the body, if it's dehydrated, it is going to shrink and weaken. That's just the dehydration process. The liver can survive, be very small and high functioning, but the brain is not the same. And I have another graph I want to show you. Oh, well, it's not a graph, sorry. It's a picture. I've displayed this one already, but I wanted to post this to my... It's very clear to see, without being a surgeon, that the normal brain is fluffed up, not as many black areas. The dehydrated one is very much so small within its skull and full of black spots, which will logistically cause issues for the electrodes getting around in that brain versus the normal brain. And obviously the normal brain versus the dehydrated brain in reference to problem solving and remaining calm and clear in whatever they're living. The normal brain versus the dehydrated brain. Obviously, the dehydrated brain is going to feel similar to addict panic, per se. It's going to be less calm, less clear, not really know what to do in comparison to the normal brain. Now, very clearly, both of those brains are going to function. They're going to live and everything. But what it goes back to is the quality of your living and the quality of your perception and your ability to stay calm and positive in whatever it is you're living. Now, that dehydration of the inside, very logistically and realistically, is completely linked to a lot of the factory foods, specifically the fast food joints. And since I have kicked the sugar addiction, I now eat for my stomach, not my tongue. So my stomach tells my brain if it's satisfied or not and what to eat, not my tongue. My tongue goes to 3 different fast food joints and thinks they're all different. But my stomach tells me not to go to any of them for the exact same reasons. So my tongue is seeing the fine detail of the sauces, but my stomach is just seeing what's best for my body. And that's why it knows this joint is the same as this joint, is the same as this joint. And by kicking the sugar addiction and eating for my stomach instead of my tongue, my body can trust me to feed myself like a creature of nature. And very sincerely, everything I eat, with the exception of a few chips with the kids, everything I eat is very healthy and serving a purpose. And in that, I can eat the same foods every day and I don't get sick of them because it's not for my tongue. And if I need to make it taste a different way, I just change the sauce or change the cheese, but the rest of the foods remain the same because my stomach takes charge, not my tongue, and allows me to make much stronger decisions for my own degree of health, in protecting my own health, and protecting myself from cancer-causing foods that are made in factories. Logistically and practically, nature has what it needs to completely repair our youth and guide us back to a very strong health understanding for our young people. It's not a maybe when it comes to nature. If the humans choose nature, nature will choose humans. And when nature chooses us, well, nature has much bigger powers than we do. So if we can get in good graces with nature through a food market, well, that would make a very massive difference to the youth of tomorrow and gives us all hope for a truly cancer-free world. Thank you again for your time and respect. I love you all. 我必须去, I gotta go. In the meantime, 吃得好，保持乐观，度过美好的一天。Eat good, feel good, create a great day. 我爱你们. I love you all. 再见.